There was like a generation or two of Native people who were literally pulled away from their language, their culture, their food and drink and medicine. The government sent them to residential schools to try to force them to become essentially white. Today, younger generations are trying to reach back to relearn those traditions and languages, and they want to become teachers for the even younger generations yet to come. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Morja Wealth Management, serving the North Country for 3 generations. MorjaWM.com. Advisory services offered through Hightower Advisors LLC. Securities are offered through Hightower Securities LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. And Kinney Drugs, now accepting S3 Nations benefits and OTC Network Wellness benefit cards for eligible over-the-counter health items. Details at KinneyDrugs.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, August 4th. First up, Governor Kathy Hochul was in the Adirondacks yesterday. She toured some of the Olympic facilities in Lake Placid. Hochul is promoting a potential bid to host the 2042 Winter Olympics in both Lake Placid and New York City. Emily Russell was along for the tour and has our story.
The first stop on Governor Kathy Hochul's tour of the Olympic facilities in Lake Placid was the museum.
This is the actual torch from 1980. She's going to show you the torch and go through the...
A staff member from the Olympic Museum handed Hochul a pair of white gloves. After putting them on, the governor held up the 1980 torch and shared her lofty goal.
My job is to bring the torch back.
There you go.
Yes. With this incredible dream team. 2042!
Yeah.
Last month, Hochul created an Olympic exploratory committee. The goal is to figure out what it would take to host the games between Lake Placid and New York City. The idea is that the snow and sliding sports could be held in the Adirondacks, while New York City could host arena events like hockey and figure skating. The next stop on Hochul's tour was the 1980 hockey rink, where the American men defeated the Soviets in a game that became known as the Miracle on Ice. Lake Placid is currently hosting a women's hockey tournament for top players under the age of 18. The governor was wearing a blue jacket with stars and stripes on the arms and USA in big bold letters on the back.
This is an extraordinary place. It's a magical place. It's a place where miracles are made and miracles will be made in the future.
Speaking to some state lawmakers, local leaders, and reporters, Hochul acknowledged the hurdles of hosting part of the games in Lake Placid, a town of about 2,200 people.
We figure out the housing challenges. We figure out the infrastructure that has to be done with the roads in this area. Work on linkages between New York City and the North Country, what that looks like.
Hochul said that the recent Winter Games in Italy, hosted between Milan and Cortina, proved that splitting the games between a big city and a smaller mountain town can work. State Assemblyman Robert Carroll was at those recent Olympics. He says traveling between the two host locations was similar to what it would be like in New York.
I took a train from Milan to outside of Venice, and then I took a bus. And the road from outside of Venice to Cortina is a mountainous road that's about one lane in each direction.
Carroll represents part of Brooklyn, but has a second home in the Adirondacks. He says any bid to host the games up here will require a lot of public input over things like transportation and housing.
The only way this will be successful in New York City or in Lake Placid is if we listen to local communities and we solve those problems.
Ava McNaughton competed at the latest Olympics in Milan. She's a goaltender for the women's Olympic hockey team, which just won gold. McNaughton says she saw the Italian city pivot after the Olympics.
They were turning our housing into apartments for students after, and so I think a lot of those same principles can be used in what would be this 2042 Olympics.
Lake Placid has hosted 2 Winter Olympics, first in 1932 and most recently in 1980. But the games are a lot bigger and more complicated than they were back then. Governor Hochul says the exploratory committee will spend the next year looking at the costs and benefits of hosting the games, as well as the hurdles and challenges. Then the state will decide whether to submit an official bid to the International Olympic Committee. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio, Lake Placid.
If you have a headache or you're congested, you reach for a bottle in the medicine cabinet. For indigenous communities, healing traditionally came from foraging the land, from plants grown in the forest, fields, and even backyards. But that traditional medicinal knowledge was disrupted by forced assimilation. In Akwesasne, a group of Mohawk women is working to bring back some of that traditional knowledge. David Escobar brings us a story.
Right by the U.S.-Canada border, a group of women is scaling down a steep embankment on the St. Lawrence River. They use pruners to clip small branches from a freshly cut white willow tree on the shoreline.
You want to make sure that the bark has that green color to it.
Jasmine Jimerson collects the group's harvest. She inspects each branch and peels away a greenish-brown bark. It leaves a completely smooth piece of wood underneath.
And it peels away pretty easy. It's pretty satisfying.
Jimerson is a cultural practitioner of traditional medicines for the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, the government on the Canadian side of the territory. Most days, she's outside teaching community members about the types of medicine that can be cultivated from plants. The bark she's collecting for this class will be turned into a liniment.
So it'll be used topically for different pains, and you could use it for inflammation, sore muscles, that sort of thing.
This is the second year Jimerson has taught classes for her traditional medicines mentorship program. She says classes usually start with acclimating people, especially those who don't spend a lot of time outdoors, to getting their hands a little dirty.
It is really uncomfortable. Like when you're first learning and reconnecting with the land, you know, there's bugs, there's snakes, it's hot, like it's sticky, it's cold, you know, like there's so many things that are just uncomfortable. The elements are uncomfortable.
But Jimerson says there's another big obstacle. Decades of Indigenous people being forced to abandon their traditional practices.
You know, removing our people from the land, making them ashamed of being knowledgeable of the land, making them afraid of being knowledgeable of the land, all of the things that happened throughout the history of colonization.
Colonization, war, and later residential schools forced many Mohawks from their ancestral homes, often to new, unfamiliar ecosystems. After harvesting the branches, the group plops down around a blue tarp to start processing the bark. They snip the branches into smaller pieces, then strip the bark into inch-long bits. Rachel Wheatley is one of the peelers. It's her second year taking the class.
My grandmother did a lot with plant medicines, my great-grandmother, and I just have this overwhelming urge to learn more and more.
Wheatley says she's learned uses for all types of plants: stinging nettle, milk thistle, Jerusalem artichokes, and jewelweed. And she says there's no shortage of people who want to learn, especially women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. The hard part, she says, is finding a teacher, because previous generations were separated from the land.
Some people are very willing to share their knowledge and pass it on so it doesn't die out, and some are, I don't know if it's because of the residential schools or, you know, if they're just afraid to share their knowledge, or, you know, what the consequences would be if they did. But a lot of people are being more, how do you say, like, excited that someone wants to learn about it.
One of those excited students is Gagoizanta Lazor. She's new to the class this year. She says she learned as much as she could about traditional medicines from her grandmother and is taking this class to keep learning and to pass those skills on to her kids. I ask why knowing how to forage for medicine is so important to her family.
Because where else are we going to get it from? Like, we already lost so much. I want to continue and try to learn more for them. And I don't know how else to learn besides go out harvesting and asking questions myself.
And Jimerson says that's what it's all about. Passing on lessons little by little, hoping it'll inspire a new generation of teachers.
When our mothers get interested in things, you know, it trickles, those values become instilled in the whole family. And it exposes our children to it much earlier.
The women pack the willow bark into brown paper bags filled to the brim. Every student leaves with a recipe for the medicine, and Jimerson hopes the confidence to teach someone else how to make it. David Escobar, North Country Public Radio, Akwesasne.
We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Tim Ellifritz of Johnsburg and Caitlin Scholl of Lake Placid. I'm David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio.